Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Every Friday, I do a little chat on life, yoga, wellness. And today is about loss. And I didn't want to do this last Friday because it was a little bit fresh for me. Hey, Cisco. So I'm feeling a little bit more able to talk about this today. So losses in life. Some of us experience more losses than others. And I just wanted to go over the types of losses that we experience in life. Good to see you, my friend. And why we experience those losses, and maybe different ways that we can help ourselves when those things come up for us in our lives. And feel free to, hi Rachel, feel free to chime in if you have any input, any insight, anything that works for you as far as experience loss in your life. And we're talking about a range here of, all sorts of losses that we all go through in our lives, our daily lives. For me, I remember being younger and not really, the losses that I experienced were still pretty new, or it was a new thing in my life. So I remember those losses being monumental, like my grandfather passing away kind of thing. And it was something that you remember for the rest of your life, that those first monumental feelings of loss in your life is something that you can remember details about. You can remember, it's profound. It's profound when that first happens, and then as we get older, we realize little by little that loss is a part of life. It's just a part of living. If you want to live in this life, then we need to know that that's going to be a part of it, experiencing loss. And is it fun? No. But we're going to go through that today and talk a little bit about it. So again, please, this is a chat. This is a Friday chat, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Just let me know what you're thinking. So these are the types of loss that were listed on different websites. This one is from Cmhc.utexas.edu. Close friend, loss of a close friend, loss of a partner. Hi, Anne. Loss of a classmate or a colleague. Serious illness or loss of a loved one. A relationship breakup. Death of a family member. These are kind of like typical losses that we think about when we think about having a loss in our lives. But some other ones that I wrote down are the loss of a job, right? Maybe your job ended because you had a term for that job and the term ended, or maybe you were fired or let go in some capacity. That's a sense of loss. This is something that we can all relate to, is the loss of a lifestyle, right? So here we are, we're living in a pandemic world right now. So a lot of us are experiencing this as an ongoing thing right now, where we've lost this lifestyle that we once had. And now we're dealing with it. We're dealing with this new, quote, norm, this new normal, and we don't know how long this normal period is going to last, right? So all of us are experiencing that, and it is a great loss. It's a great loss of this life that we had, right? Where we could freely travel and freely see people and do the things that we want to do without having to think about getting sick or a pandemic or anything, spreading an illness around. I'm laughing a little bit because saying this out loud is like, it's so crazy to me. The whole thing is so bizarre to me that we're going through this. It's like we live in this life right now where you you just keep going. We're keeping on moving. We're just trying to live day by day, one step at a time, sort of thing. And I almost forget sometimes that this stuff is happening in the world. So there's also so we have pandemic related losses, right? Not only like the loss of a lifestyle or a life that we once knew, but also maybe you've lost people in this pandemic. And if you have, I'm so sorry for your loss. We have losses like seasonal losses, right? Maybe you thrive in the winter months, maybe you thrive in the summer months, right? And then that season goes, so there's a loss there, right? There's subtle losses that we have in our lives that we can attribute to larger feelings of emotion that we go through. So not to ignore those things and not to discount them from happening, and knowing that they can be real and they really do affect us on a lot of levels. Yeah, Cisco. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. It is monumental, you know, and it's important to acknowledge. It's important to acknowledge that that's something that is going on for us. Even maybe it's been years. I don't know how long it's been since your uncle passed away, but just knowing that that's something that stays with us, that can stay with us, and being okay with that, and knowing that we can still live life, and hopefully it gets easier and easier as time goes on. There's also things like, you know, maybe you've been away to school, maybe you've graduated from high school or college or some other experience that you've been in, and now you've graduated and now you're not in it anymore, right? So we're in a camp experience in the summer times. A lot of us, we have camp, and today our camp ended. You know, there's a loss, right? You're saying goodbye to people. You don't know when you're going to see people again, right? And we're in this world now of social media where we have this connection here. So it's really great in that way, because you can still see people and be together in that way. But of course, it's not the same as being together in person. So there's that kind of an experience, that there's a loss from that. There's loss of freedom that people can experience, right? In all different forms. We're talking about the pandemic. There's a loss of freedom there. Hi, Mary. There's a loss of freedom, you know, God forbid you're, you know, put into a jail situation, or in some capacity where you've lost your sense of freedom to do whatever you want to do. And we're all living that. We're all living that right now. But there's different levels of that kind of a loss as well. Financial loss, right? So maybe you've had some kind of crazy financial loss that you've experienced. And then there's injury. If ever you've had an injury, you know what it was like to not have that injury, and now you've lost that ability, right? So now you have this injury that you have to deal with. And for me, I feel like a lot of the sense of that feeling is not knowing what's to come, right? We don't know when the end is. Same as this whole pandemic goes, right? We're in this place of loss and despair, and we don't know when it's going to end, right? We don't have those answers. Same with an injury, right? You don't know. That's one of the things that, you know, I had some injuries a few years ago, and it's the one thing you want to know. You go to the doctor and you say, when, how much time, how long is this going to last, right? And I don't know, it must be hard as a doctor to answer those questions all the time, because you want to give people hope. You know, you want to give them some hope. You know that it will end at some point as a doctor, you know, because you've seen it over and over again. You know that, you know, the body does heal and it's bound to get better. But when you're in that place, it feels like forever, and it feels like it's never going to end. And all you want to know is, when is it going to end, right? What's happening next? I want to know what happens next. So I can go on and on about all that. So why? Why do we feel loss? Why? there's a normal that we get used to. Hi, Kelly. So we live in this world where a normal is created, right? We have a normal life, we have a schedule, we know what's coming next, right? And then we experience a loss, right? And now that normal is taken away. It's gone, right? So over time, we have to establish this new normal, right? But until we get to that new normal, the old normal is gone, right? So there's that feeling of loss. Not only have you lost that something or someone in your life, but now you've lost this sense of normalcy also that you've had, right? And that's an illusion anyway, right? We never know what's going to happen anyway, right? The only change in life, the only constant in life is change, right? So keeping that in mind. But it's a loss of a normal thing that we had in our lives on top of the loss of that thing or that person. And again, not knowing what's going to happen next, which none of us do. We never do, right? But in certain situations, when we've lost something so intense and so grave, that becomes even more prominent, right? Where we don't know what's going to happen next, because maybe you've never had a life without that something or someone, right? Maybe you've never lived life without that something or someone that you've lost. So now it's like, what's next? What can I expect, right? If it's a person that you've lost, what's going to happen on the next holiday, the next birthday, this time of year? What's going to happen where my entire life I've had the same thing with the same person? If it's a job loss, for example, right? What's going to happen next in my life job-wise, right? It's not knowing what happens next. So we experience that on top of the loss. And also, we're, as human beings, we're programmed. And I like to do some research when I do these topics. So I'll definitely put the links down below of where I got the information. Practiceoftherapy.com. We are programmed to attach as humans, right? And as dogs too, apparently. We're programmed to attach. So the experience of loss means that we're bound to suffer more because we've attached ourselves. And the detachment part is painful. I was thinking about the loss of loved ones in the world, right? And how some people attach themselves more to the loss of that loved one than others do. And I'm not trying to be negative about this. I'm trying to figure out a way to say this, but I feel some people, it's not like they make it about themselves, but they've lost somebody. There's somebody that passes away, and maybe they weren't that close to that person in life, but in some way they've attached that person. Sasha, in some way they've attached themselves to that person. Maybe it's a memory, maybe it's just the thought of that person, but in some way they've become attached. So now the detachment of them in that way to that person is where the pain is, in the loss. So I find that to be an interesting thing to think about when, there's different levels of experience that you see with people and loss. And, I could get very personal here and get into much more detail, which I'm not going to. But I just find that to be on a psychological level, on a psychology level, to be very interesting. And it's something to think about in our own selves. Like, why do I feel this way about this person or this thing that has happened? Hey, why do I feel so attached in this way to this person or this thing that happened? Why is that? What's happening in my life and in me that's making me feel that way? Even though maybe this person or this thing wasn't even in my life really that much. It makes me think about like famous people who pass away, and then people who don't even know that famous person on a personal level, they get like distraught. You know what I mean? Like, you can think of a million people, but why is that, right? Why do humans feel that connection so deeply that it's like a painful thing for them to detach from that person? So then I was thinking about the sudden versus the gradual losses that we experience in life, right? The differences that we have in those two things. So when there's a sudden loss, right, there's a shock, right? We have this shock and a disbelief, right? It's like, what? No, this isn't happening. And then it's confusing, right? It's almost like, no, this can't be real, right? It's confusing. So it brings up many feelings all at one time, right? When it's sudden. And then there's no time to say goodbye, right? In any situation, right? If it's sudden, oh my God, Jackie Pizza. You might have strong feelings of guilt. You might feel like it's unfair, if it's a death related thing, if it's somebody who's young, you might say this isn't fair, right? Things like that. You might feel vulnerable, jumpy, nervous, etc., etc. When it's expected, you have a little bit more time. It's a different experience, right? We're relating this to death right now. So, we were talking before about many losses that we experience in life. But right this second, I'm talking about death. Same thing, same feelings of guilt, but you have a little bit more time when you're expecting that loss. And it made me think of those experiences that I was talking about before, like a graduation. You're graduating from something, so you're going to lose this experience that you had. Maybe you're at college, maybe you're at high school, maybe you're in a camp-like setting in the summertime, and you know that there's an end coming, right? The end is coming. So you can somewhat prepare for it, but then there's some part of you that goes into a place of denial, like it's not happening, right? I'm not letting this happen. It's not going to happen. And then eventually it does happen, and now you have to deal with it, right? And it's like, oh my God, now I have to deal with this. So gradual versus sudden, I don't know. For me, obviously, if there's a sudden loss, yeah, it's devastating. You're confused. It's a feeling of like, what's going on? And then it takes a little bit longer to get to those other processes that we go through when we have a loss that was expected, maybe. But it's just an interesting thing to think about. Hello. It's an interesting way to think about it. So for me, personal experiences, talking about losses, I'm a parent. I have 3 children, and there's things, when you have children, there's things that you don't expect to happen. And again, maybe it's the human brain protecting us for what's to come in the future. I don't know. But as children grow up, every step that a child takes in their lives that detaches that child from you as the parent is painful. It's painful to go through. For some parents, maybe not so much, because it's exhausting. Parenting is a really tiresome thing. So sometimes it's nice to have that little welcoming break once in a while. But for me, these newer experiences of loss, my son going to college, he did 1 year already, so I need to get over this. But those little feelings of them separating away from you is not easy to go through. So really, any milestone as a parent that you go through is a sense of loss, right? And it's hard because, hi Wendy, it's hard because they're in this like new thing in their life that they're celebrating and they're excited, and you want to encourage that because you want them to be independent, you want them to be confident in what they're going into, right? But on the flip side, they're leaving you, right? And your normal is now becoming a new normal. Separation is hard. Oh my God. So they're off and doing their own thing, right? We all did it. We all did it when we were younger, to our family. You know, I remember when I went away to college, and this is before social media. This is before emailing, okay? Hi, Daria. And I don't think I called home for 2 months. I feel bad about it to this day. But I remember one of my family members, you know, when I first saw them after a couple of months, they were like, why did you leave me? Why did you leave us? Why didn't you get in touch with us? And, you know, I thought it was a big shot. So I thought it was this, you know, and I was only 18 years old. And now my son, who's 19, almost 20, I get it. I get it. It's devastating. It's devastating when somebody leaves you, and not only leaves you, but they're okay with it. That's where the pain really is, right? They're okay with it. You're not. You're left behind. It's really hard. Again, I'm talking about personal experiences here, but please chime in if you have similar things. Aging. I'm 45, and I don't yet feel like I'm running out of time in my life, but you do start to get that sense as you get older, right? And you lose things along the way. And thank God, aging is gradual. Thank God. Could you imagine waking up and looking at yourself in the mirror, right? And suddenly you're like 20 years older, right? But no, it's gradual. So the wrinkles are gradual, the sagging is gradual, like all that stuff is gradual. And depending on what you do in your life, that's also going to affect your body, etc., right? So all those little changes, thank God, are gradual. So that's a bonus. But it is a thing, you know, aging is, you're losing that youth that you had. And it happens so quickly. It's really, it's like it's not happening quickly. Like I said, it's gradual, but all of a sudden you're looking back because you're so busy. Your life is so busy and you're just doing things. You're trying to survive and make it in life, you know, and get through, make money to live and all that stuff. And then suddenly, one day, you wake up and you're older. So there's a bit of a loss there. But there's good things too that come with it. So I like to focus on those as well. So then, you know, focusing on memories, right, of good things that have happened in your past. And I think sometimes those memories are better than they actually were when they happened. But the memory becomes like better than the actual thing that happened. Yes, Sasha. Yeah. You do. You get caught up. You get caught up and it propels you forward, right? It's like you're on a roller coaster ride and you're sitting in the seat of the roller coaster and you're just going. You're just going. You're not looking back, right? Until you get off the roller coaster ride for a few minutes and then you look, you say, oh my gosh, what happened? So, you know, going back with focusing on memories, and feeling that loss of that time that may have happened. Hello. You know, and then people in my life, in your life, who have passed away, right? This is what I like to do. I like to talk about those people and remember the good things, always. But also remember the quirky things, the funny things, you know, remember when they used to do this or used to do that. And it keeps them alive. Keeps them alive, right? And I like to almost pretend sometimes like that person is actually, I believe that they're still alive in some way, that the light that we are made of doesn't die, right? So I like to sometimes think that person is just off traveling somewhere. And they don't have access to, you know, email or telephones or things like that. Yeah, it is. It is crazy how fast time goes by. Sasha, don't cry. So, in that sense, when we are thinking of other people who have passed away, and we're thinking of them, they're off away traveling, they're having a great time, what would we want for them? We would want them to be happy, and we would want them to be in a good place, right? And they would want the same from us. They want the same from us. So, in a sense, hopefully that helps us deal with those losses in life. So, what are the answers when we're feeling that, when we're feeling those losses? This reminds me of my yoga practice. If you build a strong foundation for yourself of health and wellness, it's always going to help you deal with things that come up in life. Maybe your practice is to wake up, right? We have these routines that we can create in our lives of health and wellness. So maybe your routine is you wake up in the morning, you write in a journal, you take 5 minutes, 10 minutes just to meditate. And meditation, there's so many ways to meditate. So definitely check out all the different ways. There's apps for your phone that you can get. Just like a meditation, a little journal entry. Maybe you just write a list of things that you're grateful for. I woke up today, the sun is shining. There's food in my cupboards that I can eat. I have friends, I have family who care about me, right? It's the simple things in life that we forget. So maybe that becomes a part of a daily routine for you that helps build this healthy foundation. But I think as far as feeling that loss that we can tend to feel with anything, with people or things that we lose in our lives. Yes, sweetheart, I know. It's been a tough year. There's a website called healthline.com, and I'm going to put this underneath the video. So having a sense of self, I think, is really important in times of great or small loss, any kind of loss. Having a good sense of self is going to help us to deal with anything like that in our lives. So your sense of self, it refers to your perception of the collection of characteristics that define you. So your personality traits, your abilities, your likes, your dislikes, your belief system or your moral code, and the things that motivate you. So I'm going to look this up real quick on here. Okay, so define your values. Okay? This is how we build a strong sense of self. Define your values. Make your own choices. Spend time alone. Consider how to achieve your ideals. Know when to get help. Okay? And asking for help is a really, really good thing. The concept of self, your sense of self, it's not an easy thing to grasp, especially as you're growing up, the years when you're a teenager to, in your 20s, finding that sense of self is not easy to do. So give yourself a break and find those things that you can fall back on for yourself, right? What are your values? What's important to you? Again, spending time alone, doing those things where you're writing down things that are positive and help you in your life to get through the day. And this is my final little tidbit for you. Life comes with loss. Loss comes with life. We're all going to experience it many, 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 many times in our lives. And it's okay. So what if we just live life, build a strong sense of self, build a strong foundation for ourselves, and expect that loss is going to happen? Because it is, right? It is. We don't know how or when all the time we're going to experience those losses, but just expect that we will. And hopefully in that alone, it will help us to prepare for it in some way. Or not, because it's hard to prepare for it. And there's different types of losses. Some things are closer to our hearts than others. So not only expecting it to happen, because it's going to, but know deep in your heart that you're going to be okay. You are going to be okay, and you are going to get through it. That's my final word. I hope that these chats help you in some way. Let me know, and you can always catch the replay on this page or on Kara Yoga on YouTube. Sending love to everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.